The Roman Empire was undefeated by any army for 400 years. Rome ruled the world at the height of its powers, conquering all the way through Spain, France, England, and even as far as modern-day Iran, a testament to their mighty history of warfare. However, the story of Rome would be incomplete without the tale of Hannibal Barca, the mighty Carthaginian general who rose through the ranks, conquering Roman territories down to Italy and the very gates of Rome itself. He united individual tribes in war against Rome, led an army across the Alps, and delivered a series of crushing defeats to the Roman Empire, striking fear in the heart of the Republic as its people muttered in hushed whispers, "Hannibal lies at the gate." Hannibal's name and military efforts have become firmly entrenched among the greatest generals in human history. But how did he rise to become such an accomplished commander? How did he rise to become the bane of Rome, striking fear in the heart of the Senate? Before we get started, remember that Before Now channel is dedicated to helping people understand historical events and how they have shaped our present. If you like videos such as these, please like and subscribe to the Before Now channel. You can also leave a comment and tell us what popular historical event you'd like us to cover. Hannibal Barca was an exceptional general known for his brilliant strategic mind and effective tactical skills. He was always one step ahead, often surprising the Romans with his unexpected maneuvers. Born in 247 BC, Hannibal was the son of Hamilcar Barca, the prominent Carthaginian leader who fought in the First Punic War. Hannibal was born in what is now northern Tunisia, a region once colonized by the Canaanites from Phoenicia, which corresponds to the modern-day coasts of Lebanon and Syria. His mother and several reported sisters remain largely unknown. Hannibal had two brothers, Hasdrubal and Mago. His brothers-in-law were Hasdrubal the Fair and the Numidian king Narr'havas. Hannibal's brothers-in-law were close associates during his father's campaigns in the Mercenary War and the Carthaginian conquest of the Iberian Peninsula, even though Hannibal was still a child when his sisters married. Hannibal was born into the ongoing war between Rome and Carthage. The Punic Wars were a series of three major conflicts fought between the ancient civilizations of Rome and Carthage. The term Punic comes from the Latin word punicus or ponicus, which referred to the Carthaginians, who were of the Phoenician origin. The wars were primarily fought for control over the Western Mediterranean and were pivotal in the eventual dominance of Rome in the region. The First Punic War lasted from 264 BC to 241 BC. This war began as a struggle over the control of Sicily, an important island for trade and military advantage. The war ended with a Roman victory, leading to Rome's control over Sicily, which became its first province. Rome also forced a treaty with Carthage, which affirmed Rome as the undisputed power in charge of the Mediterranean sea trade routes, a route which had been previously controlled by Carthage and had a bounding effect on the growth and success of the Carthaginians. The Romans continued to impose new taxes and tariffs on Carthage, continually fueling deep-seated anger and resentment from the people of Carthage. Among them was Hamilcar Barca, a prominent leader and commander of the Carthaginian army, and also the father of Hannibal Barca. Hamilcar felt that the only way to advance the interest of Carthage while paying the treaty to Rome was to make inroads into the Iberian Peninsula, which is the modern-day countries of Spain and Portugal. The Iberian Peninsula was rich in silver and metal, and was economically strong to support Carthage in building their army while servicing their war debt to Rome. Hamilcar departed Carthage to embark on this mission in 237 BC, accompanied by his 9-year-old son Hannibal. It is said that Hannibal begged his father to allow him to accompany him on his mission, and Hamilcar only agreed after taking his son to the temple of Baal and having him swear eternal hatred to Rome. It would be many years before Hannibal would see Carthage again. However, Hamilcar went on a successful rampage of the Iberian Peninsula, conquering much of its territories, and in so doing boosting the economy and ensuring that a vast amount of wealth was flowing back to Carthage in gold and silver. During this time, Hannibal grew up in the company of accomplished soldiers, learning the art of warfare and soaking up all the knowledge at his disposal. It was clear to all that the little Barca had an uncanny mind for battle and understood war in its most strategic and intricate form. At the age of 18, Hannibal already had a large number of troops under his command. In 228 BC, Hamilcar died, and the command of the Carthaginian forces at Iberia fell to Hasdrubal the Fair, Hannibal's brother-in-law. Hasdrubal served in command of the armies of Carthage for 7 years, consolidating their success at Iberia, while Hannibal grew exceedingly in wisdom, experience, and influence. In 221 BC, Hasdrubal was assassinated at the age of 26. Hannibal Barca was named commander-in-chief of the Carthaginian forces. No sooner had he been named commander before the old soldiers took a fancy to Hannibal. They saw him as a reflection of Hamilcar in his youth, the same bright look, the same fire in his eyes, the same trick of countenance and features, an uncanny mind for war. Hannibal's early life was steeped in military tradition and conflict. His father, Hamilcar, played a significant role in the mercenary war and the Punic conquest of the Iberian Peninsula. Although Hannibal was still a child when his sisters married, his brother-in-law became close associates during his father's campaigns. This early exposure to military strategy and tactics undoubtedly influenced Hannibal's future career as a military leader. Hannibal's name is synonymous with the Second Punic War, where his audacious and bold strategies left an indelible mark on military history. For the next 2 years after he took charge of the forces at Iberia, Hannibal continued on the conquest of the Iberian Peninsula, up till the Ebro River, a point that had been agreed by both Rome and Carthage as the landmark delineating the territory, and as such the military limits of both nations. In his first campaign, Hannibal attacked and captured Illythia, the strongest city of the Olcades, leading to their quick surrender and extending Carthaginian power close to the river Tagus. The following year, in 220 BC, he turned his sights westward to the Vacae, seizing their strongholds of Helmantice and Arbocala. On his way back, he was ambushed by a coalition of Spanish tribes led by the Carpentani. Hannibal's decisive victory in this battle showcased his tactical brilliance. Rome, worried about Hannibal's growing power in Iberia, allied with the city of Saguntum, located well south of the Ebro River, and declared it under Roman protection. Seeing this as a breach of the treaty with Hasdrubal and as an opportunity to provoke Rome, Hannibal laid siege to Saguntum, which fell after 8 months. Sending the spoils from Saguntum to Carthage, Hannibal secured significant support from his government. In response to what they saw as a treaty violation, the Roman Senate sent a delegation to Carthage, demanding to know if Hannibal had acted on Carthage's orders. The Carthaginian Senate argued that the treaty had never been officially ratified by either government. Quintus Fabius Maximus Verrucosus, the delegation leader, demanded that Carthage choose between war and peace. The Carthaginians left the choice to Rome, who decided on war. To defeat the Romans, Hannibal decided on a bold and daring strategy to attack Rome on its own soil. This idea had a lot of downsides, principal among which was that Rome had anticipated this and had dispatched an army to intercept Hannibal. However, no one ever thought that Hannibal would dare do what he did. As opposed to taking his army down the normal route, he decided instead to cross the Alps, a quicker but more daunting alternative. In late spring of 218 BC, Hannibal left Carthage, Spain, New Carthage. He battled through northern tribes to reach the foothills of the Pyrenees, using clever mountain tactics and determined fighting. He left 20,000 troops to secure the newly conquered area and released 11,000 Iberian troops who were unwilling to leave their homeland. Hannibal entered Gaul with 40,000 foot soldiers and 12,000 horsemen. Hannibal knew he still had to cross the Pyrenees, the Alps, and many large rivers, and he would face opposition from the Gauls. Starting in the spring of 218 BC, he crossed the Pyrenees and reached the Rhone River by negotiating with the Gaulish chiefs along the way. Before the Romans could block his advance, by September, Hannibal's army, now numbering 38,000 infantry, 8,000 cavalry, and 38 elephants, reached the Rhone. However, almost none of the elephants would survive the tough conditions of the Alps. Hannibal outmaneuvered the local tribes who tried to stop him and avoided a Roman force by turning inland up the Rhone Valley. The exact route he took over the Alps has been debated for centuries. Some reports suggest he crossed near the modern Col de Montegenèvre, while others believe he crossed near the Col de Mont-Cenis, or Little St. Bernard Pass. Hannibal's risky march into Roman territory surprised the Romans and disrupted their plans. By arriving in the Po Valley, he managed to win over the Gauls, who had recently allied with Rome. Publius Cornelius Scipio, the Roman consul in charge of intercepting Hannibal, didn't expect Hannibal to cross the Alps and was initially prepared to fight in the Iberian Peninsula. Scipio quickly transported his army to Italy to meet Hannibal, who was moving through the Po Valley. At the Battle of Ticinus, Hannibal's superior cavalry forced the Romans to retreat. This victory encouraged the Gauls and the Ligurians to join Hannibal, bolstering his army to around 40,000 men. Scipio was injured but saved his son and retreated to Placentia. Meanwhile, another consular army led by Tiberius Sempronius Longus was ordered to reinforce Scipio. Hannibal strategically positioned himself to intercept Sempronius, but failed as Sempronius joined Scipio near the Trebia River. In December, Hannibal skillfully ambushed the Roman army at the Battle of Trebia, defeating them decisively. However, the harsh winter caused most of Hannibal's war elephants to die, preventing them from participating in future battles, like Lake Trasimene and Cannae. In 217 BC, during the winter, Hannibal stationed his troops with the Gauls, but their support waned. Concerned about assassination attempts, he disguised himself with different wigs. In spring, he moved south, aiming for a more secure base, while the Roman consuls Gnaeus Servilius and Gaius Flaminius anticipated his advance on Rome and blocked the main routes. Hannibal chose a challenging route through the marshy Arno area, losing many troops and even his right eye to conjunctivitis. Upon reaching Etruria, he began devastating the area to provoke Flaminius into battle. Flaminius, unable to tolerate the destruction, pursued Hannibal, who cleverly ambushed and annihilated the Roman army by Lake Trasimene, killing Flaminius. This ambush was one of Rome's worst defeats, leaving no Roman force to halt Hannibal's advance on Rome. However, without siege equipment, he couldn't attack the capital, and instead aimed to incite a general revolt in central and southern Italy. In response, Rome appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator. Fabius adopted a strategy of avoiding direct battles, focusing on shadowing and limiting Hannibal's movements. Although Hannibal ravaged the Apulian region and attempted to provoke Fabius into battle by devastating rich Campania, Fabius remained cautious and did not engage. Hannibal faced a tough situation when Fabius blocked all escape routes from Campania. In a clever maneuver, Hannibal used cattle with torches tied to their horns to trick the Romans into thinking his army was escaping. As the Romans pursued the decoy, Hannibal silently led his troops through an unguarded pass, successfully escaping with his army intact. This brilliant escape tarnished Fabius's reputation, and his period of power soon ended. In the spring of 216 BC, Hannibal captured the vital supply depot at Cannae in the Apulian plain, positioning himself between the Romans and their essential supplies. The Roman Senate, appointing Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus as consuls, raised a massive army, estimated between 50,000 and 80,000 men, to confront Hannibal. The Roman forces marched to Apulia and found Hannibal near the Aufidus River. The two consuls took turns commanding the combined Roman army. On the day of battle, it was Varro's turn to lead. Hannibal exploited the Romans' eagerness and drew them into a trap using an envelopment tactic, which neutralized their numerical advantage. He placed his weaker troops in the center, allowing them to retreat and lure the Romans in, while his strong cavalry on the flanks decimated the Roman cavalry and then attacked the Roman legions from behind. This strategy resulted in a devastating defeat for the Romans, with estimates of 50,000 to 70,000 Roman soldiers killed or captured. Among the dead were high-ranking officials, including the consul Paulus and many senators, constituting a significant portion of Rome's governing body. The Battle of Cannae was one of Rome's most catastrophic defeats and one of the bloodiest single-day battles in history. After this defeat, the Romans avoided direct confrontations with Hannibal, opting instead to weaken him through attrition. Hannibal, lacking support from Carthage for a siege on Rome, could not capitalize on his victory. Despite his triumph at Cannae, he received limited reinforcements and had to focus on subduing remaining strongholds. The final chapter of Hannibal's life is a tale of resilience, political maneuvering, and a relentless quest to evade his Roman adversaries. Following this renowned military campaign during the Second Punic War, Hannibal faced a series of challenges that ultimately defined his concluding years. After his decisive defeat at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC, Hannibal's dream of conquering Rome was shattered. Carthage, weakened and compelled to agree to harsh peace terms imposed by Rome, entered a period of decline. Despite this, Hannibal's influence in Carthage remained substantial. He was appointed as a suffet, a chief magistrate, and undertook significant political reforms aimed at curbing corruption and restoring Carthage's economic stability. His measures, however, antagonized the aristocracy, leading to considerable internal opposition. As Carthage's political climate grew increasingly hostile, Hannibal's enemies in Rome continued to view him as a threat. In 195 BC, afraid of Roman retribution, Hannibal fled Carthage and sought asylum in the court of Antiochus III, the Seleucid king. In subsequent years, Hannibal became a military advisor to Antiochus, who was preparing for a confrontation with Rome. However, the Seleucids were decisively defeated at the Battle of Magnesia in 190 BC, and Antiochus was forced to sue for peace, leaving Hannibal's position increasingly precarious. Hannibal then embarked on a series of exiles, moving from one royal court to another. He first sought refuge with King Prusias I of Bithynia in modern-day Turkey, continuing his resistance against Rome by supporting Prusias in his conflicts. Despite his declining power, Hannibal remained a cunning strategist and even achieved minor victories for his hosts. However, his relentless pursuers from Rome were never far behind. Rome's pressure on Bithynia to surrender Hannibal intensified, and it became clear that his capture was imminent. Facing the prospect of being handed over to his lifelong enemies, Hannibal chose to end his life on his own terms. In 183 BC, at the age of 64, Hannibal took poison, reportedly saying, "Let us now relieve the Romans of their fears by the death of a feeble old man." Hannibal's legacy endured long after his death. He is remembered as one of history's greatest military commanders, renowned for his tactical brilliance and the audacity of his campaigns against Rome. His life symbolizes the relentless pursuit of ambition and strong resistance against a dominant power. Despite his ultimate defeat, Hannibal's name remains emblematic of military genius and indomitable spirit.